Let's go say hi to Taylor.
No, we're fine.
Look at the width, the glass. Oh my god. Hi guys, and welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Becca. I'm a writer and I'm currently working on what I'm hoping will be my debut literary fiction novel. It is a 90s East Coast autumn ghost story, which is working under the alias of Project Eden, and you're seeing some clips of me and my bestie Taylor in downtown Chicago, and I wanted to include this not only because I think these are some really beautiful memories, but because after I finished draft 2, I really wanted to make it a point to just get back to living life. I feel like for 3 solid months, I just kind of had my nose to the grindstone, and I was so focused on putting together a really solid second draft for me to start working on for revisions. And I just felt like it was so much fun to just be together and not worry about writing and not worry about anything other than just having a good time together. So I did end up picking up that copy of Carmilla, and I'm almost done, which is really exciting. But we ended up going to the Art Institute. This is something that Taylor really wanted to do, and I feel like as an artist, not just a writer, but like as an artist, this is a place that's really special to me. I've been here once before, and there's something about looking at art and history and being around things that have existed just for so many years and learning more about where they came from and the people that made them, that, I don't know, really just inspired me. And it was such a great way for me to both disconnect and also reconnect to my creativity. If you have not been to the Art Institute, I highly recommend it. But we're going to take a brief pause here while Taylor freaks out about seeing her one and only Van Gogh.
Totally, actually so chill.
You're so chill?
I'm actually so chill.
You're so chill? You're so chill. So yeah, getting to see Taylor look at the painting that she's been thinking about for so many years now was really special. And I think that's one of the things about, balancing creativity with a real life is that you have to be in the moment to savor things like that, and you have to make time to be around people and be accessible while also learning to juggle the things that are important to you and the projects that you're working on. Like writing a book is no joke. But this was such a beautiful day. It felt like honestly the first real day of summer in the city, and I was so blessed to be able to see Taylor one last time before she went to go see her family. And honestly, I am so excited to start talking about draft 2 and share with you guys all about my revision, the bound copy, and everything we have in store for draft 3. Hi guys, it is Friday. It is 4:30, like exactly. I have a very exciting update to share with you. Honestly, I was not expecting to film this for a few more weeks, but I'm so happy to be doing it now. Shortly after I finished draft 2 of Eden on the writing retreat, I decided to order a bound copy from Barnes & Noble Press, sort of as just like a treat for finishing my second draft, and also for finishing the most book-shaped draft that I've ever done. And it wasn't supposed to get here for another week, but it actually ended up getting here today, which I'm so excited about. I did already open it because I wanted to share that moment actually with Edwin. He has seen how much work I've put into this and how many early mornings and late nights and live streams and just how much of my time I've poured into it, and he wanted to be there for me to share in the victory, so I'm really glad that we did that together. So in this portion of the video, I wanted to walk you guys through the printed copy, the differences between this draft and draft 1, as well as my revision plan going forward for draft 3. So without further ado, I guess I should just show you the book. So this is draft 2 of Eden. I will reiterate, this is not for sale. I am not self-publishing. I am hoping to pursue traditional publishing. Here she is. She's pretty thick. She's coming in at around 342 pages in total. I did not do the best job formatting this, but we'll get to that in a minute. So this is the cover. Also, hey, title reveal. This is actually like a working title. I'm not attached to it too much unless you guys tell me you love it, in which case I'm happy to attach myself to it. I did end up designing this cover in Canva, but it did misprint a little bit. And this is the back. This is a fake ISBN number, I hope. She's pretty beefy, honestly. I'm very proud. I think I'm looking at this copy and I'm feeling incredibly proud. The formatting on the inside, line spacing looks great. I did end up leaving like my last name, Project Eden, in the page number. I didn't format that correctly. And also there's like a ton of space down here in the margin, but that's fine. So I have already printed a version. That's the one that I'm going to be actually like writing up and editing, and that's in a binder. This version is specifically just for me to do a read through and take notes for structural and developmental changes that I want to make. And then once I'm done with the read through, I will then go back into my printed copy and actually start marking up a lot of the text itself. So technically I'm going to be doing 2 different read throughs before I actually jump back into like my Scrivener document and start editing, which brings me to a couple of statistics. So for draft 1 of Eden, I had to go back, and this is why it's fun to document everything. I had to go back on my channel and figure out when I actually started that draft in earnest. So I started draft 1 of Eden in October of 2024, and I actually ended up finishing it at the end of January 2025. It was like end of October to end of January. It was about 4 months, and that draft was 50,000 words. For that draft, I did a lot of discovery writing in the first half, and then ended up kind of starting from the midpoint forward, discovery writing as well, but with a much more solid idea of what the story was going to look like by the end. For draft 2, I started it in February and I finished it mid-May. So that was around 3 months, and this draft was 90,000 words. I added an extra 40,000 words. When I say I poured a lot of time and effort into this draft, I mean I poured a lot of time and effort into this draft. So what kind of changes did I make? Where did those 40,000 words go? So I've mentioned it before, but if you've never watched a single one of my other videos, my main goal for draft 2 was really just to give the story a support structure. I wanted it to have flow. I wanted it to feel like a story, even if there were continuity errors and typos and just all of that. I wanted it to feel like there was a through thread throughout the entire thing. I would say that this draft definitely accomplished that. I think that the story is in a much stronger place. I think it's been a lot easier for me to see the areas where I can improve upon the story. It's actually making revision a lot easier and a lot more like I can see the roadmap ahead of me. I will say the one thing I worry is that the story doesn't have enough conflict, but I'm not going to get to that until a little bit later. So as for the additional 40,000 words that I added, they came in a few different places. Definitely the first half of the book. The first half of draft 1 really was me just discovering, I think, some of the characters, Eden as a town and as a character and as a setting. And there was really very little to do with Peter's parents and how he and Laurel kind of went on this journey. So a lot of, I would say, the first half of the book went through major structural changes, and I added a lot of words there. I also added a lot of words in Act 2, Part 2. Even though The Dark Night of the Soul needs a lot more work, I do think that it's in a much better place. I do feel like the second half of the book is a lot stronger. There's a little bit of payoff because I was thinking through that second half of things that I wanted to add, character dynamics and stuff like that I didn't add when I started redrafting this book, because that's the other thing. I completely wrote draft 2 from scratch, like from 0 words. I was able to salvage a few passages from draft 1, but on the whole, I would say like 95% of draft 2 was fresh words. So I had to work in Act 2 off of some things that hadn't been established yet. So now I have to go back and weave some of that stuff into the earlier pages and also cut off a few things. One of the things that I noticed was that I added 2 plot threads for Peter's arc with his father that I didn't actually follow through with, so I need to decide if those are things that I still want to pursue, which I think I do. So I think cutting away some of the words that aren't working to make room for scenes and words that I think will work and will strengthen Peter's arc with his parents, I think is a win. I think that the main thing that I did differently with draft 2 was that I took it so serious. Like, it was so serious to me, you guys. I was trying so hard to figure out ways to motivate myself, to find time to work on this project, to brainstorm as much as I could. I was really doing my best to take it as seriously as I could, because I think for me, I realized, like, if this is something that I really want to do and I really want to query it by the end of the year or by early January, then I kind of have to be on a very, very regimented deadline. As a corporate girly, that I've discovered is that I work really great under pressure and under deadline. So to me, having a deadline is just like such a great motivator. It gives me a sense of the amount of work that I need to do every day to kind of hit those goals. But I'm also fully aware that those goals are arbitrary and they're totally made up and they are what I make them to be. So I am just really proud of, I think, all of the work that I've done so far to make this exist. So my plan was to take about a month off, but it's so interesting that I'm finding that I'm not really wanting to take a big break or as much of a break as I wanted to. Like, I think I took 2 weeks off. It's 2 weeks as of right now, and I just revised chapter 1 literally earlier today. I was reading my printed copy and making a ton of notes, and I think for me, I was kind of scared to jump back into revisions at first because I knew that the draft needed a lot of work, and I was scared that I was going to lose a lot of the threads and notes that I had made along the way, even though I was literally dumping my thoughts into a document as I was going. But then once I kind of ripped that Band-Aid off, I just got so excited to just dive into it again. I'm going to force myself to not actively edit. I am going to read and take notes on things that I do want to change while I'm reading this, and then ease back into actually fully revising everything. Which brings me to the next portion, which is my revision plan. And for that, I actually want to take you over to my Notion page because I want to walk you guys through how I am staying organized with revisions. I will say, organization tools, stuff like this is where I get really type A and where I really like to make sure that I document absolutely everything. Everything else in my life, I am type B. But let me go ahead and take you guys over to my Notion page so that I can show you exactly how I have sort of set myself up for success with draft 3. Okay, so if you've kind of been following this journey since the beginning, this Notion page will look very familiar to you. This is my sort of writing template. I first created this when I started brainstorming Project Eden to have a base to put everything. I have since moved a lot of stuff over to my Scrivener document. The reason I am coming back to this Notion template is because I needed something a little bit more meaty to handle the way that I wanted to do revisions. So I have moved things around a little bit. You'll notice here that I have a draft 3 revision checklist. So there's a couple of things that I wanted to do in the time that I am giving myself between reading this draft and actually jumping back into making changes in my Scrivener document. So the first thing is that I want to improve a lot of my craft on a technical level. I really want to read the emotional wound thesaurus because that is something that I think is going to be very helpful for me as I explore a lot of the emotional relationships, because this story is very emotionally charged and character driven. So I want to expand my knowledge of how to navigate that on the page. The next thing that I want to do is read Save the Cat in full. I don't know if I'm going to do in full, but there are definitely pieces of it that I want to revisit. I want to just refamiliarize myself with a lot of the beats and make sure that I'm hitting them as best as I can. There's also a lot that I want to learn in terms of logline writing and synopsis, and that book has a lot of resources on that, so I kind of want to jump back into that. And then I have Read Story Genius. Ari actually recommended this book to me, and Mick. This one I'm going to leave as like a good stretch goal. I don't have that book. I'd need to get it. The next thing that I want to do is do the complete reread of draft 2. I want to establish all of my key plot lines storylines and character arcs, which I've already kind of started doing specifically for Peter and Laurel, which we'll get to in a little bit. I do want to create a chapter by chapter revision note list, which I'm going to show you guys how I'm doing that in just a second. I need to flesh out any bracketed scenes. Luckily, I didn't leave too many in this draft, but I did leave some, so I need to go back and figure that out. I need to establish a lot of the 90s details. I did leave some of those quite ambiguous, and I think at one point I said that the book takes place in 1995, but I've actually had to push it to 1997 for one very, very specific, minute, but also very important reason. And then the last thing that I want to do is identify any continuity or timeline errors. I have quite a bit of those because I decided to shift the timeline of the story from taking place during the entire month of October to just the last 2 weeks. So I need to change a lot of that. Next is complete character analyses. You'll notice that all of these are actually all checked off. I do need to add John and Claire, who are Peter's parents, to this, but Peter, Laurel, and Duncan are all checked off. I might also do Sophie, who's Peter's ex-girlfriend. Those are all kind of, I would say Sophie's kind of like a secondary character. I don't want my cast to feel incredibly bloated. Duncan is also kind of a secondary character, but he's kind of a foil to Peter. There's a lot of characters that are kind of foils to Peter. So I did complete like the top 3 that I wanted to do for this draft, and I think I might jump into some additional characters as well, just to make sure that everything feels very cohesive and that it flows together really well, because so many of these characters' stories are very interconnected, and I want to make sure that the emotional payoff for a lot of Peter's growth and some other character dynamics are woven in there as best as they could be. And then this last one is kind of insane, but it is also a stretch goal, and I would love to re-outline the book scene by scene. If not, at least when I'm going through my chapter by chapter notes, be very intentional about what I need each scene to accomplish. As long as I have a line or two about what I need the scene to do, I think that would be incredible. That would be really helpful for me, just to make sure that I am making the most of everything that I am putting down on the page. So what you really want to see is my draft 2 revision tracker. So I've kept this very simple on purpose because I need simplicity. I need organization and I need simplicity. So let's start with the draft 2 revision notes dump. These were the notes that I was leaving myself in my Scrivener document as I was writing the book. Things like, okay, if Laurel's dad is an asshole, that needs to be apparent much earlier on. How does the town feel about it? How does that impact the narrative? There's like a lot of little things, like questions I was asking myself, and also things that I'm like, okay, I want to add this, and that needs to be woven in earlier, or this realization needs to happen later. So this brain dump is like literally all of those notes, and I have no doubt that I'll probably add more to it as I go through rereading draft 2. And then down here, this is the main reason why I wanted to come back to Scrivener for revisions. So this is kind of like my database for every single chapter in this book, and this is how I'm doing my chapter by chapter outline. You can see here I've got a little drop down menu to select what act each chapter is in. I may also add a column that demonstrate which beat in Save the Cat each chapter is hitting. Obviously, we've got our little revised column here, so if one is done, we can check them off. Or if the chapter, obviously the point of view, and then the word count for the chapter. So this is why I wanted this. Here you can see, if you click on open, it will open a separate page of notes that you can take. So for chapter 1, I can make myself a bunch of checklists and notes here so that I can kind of keep track of everything that I'm working on. As I'm doing the chapter by chapter notes, I will then go into the Notion page for that chapter and write down my thoughts, checklists, write down all of the scenes that are happening in that chapter, what needs to change, what needs to stay. I also have some like resources. So like this is just like notes that I took on an article about how to structure your first chapter, and then also how to write your opening scene. And this is just stuff to kind of help me feel like I'm on some sort of track. But essentially my goal is to go through every single chapter in the book and build this out. So I kind of have this broken up into 2 different sections after my narrative structure and notes list. I have all of the scenes that I'm going to be taking notes on the left, and basically this is where I'm going to make sure that every scene that I'm writing and including serves a purpose to move the story forward. And then in the revision notes, this is where I'm going to make notes for like, okay, the scenes that I do want to keep, is there anything that I need to change in this scene specifically or in like the larger narrative? So as you can see here, there was a couple continuity errors already in draft 1. So I went ahead and made some notes about, you know, Peter's only there for the last 2 weeks of October. I mentioned the tire swing as a foreshadowing moment, but then I never brought it up again. Like, I need to figure out how I want to weave this in. This is kind of like my roadmap to keeping track of all of the changes that I want to make in the draft. I wish I could keep this in Scrivener itself, but I don't know how to do that, and I think this is actually a really great way of taking care of this. So this is why I love Notion so much. So then we also have our characters. I did go back in here a little bit. I'm gonna blur some of these details, but I did put like my character profiles here so that I could kind of go more in depth and figure out motivations, professions, things like that. I want to do this for secondary characters as well so that I can kind of keep track of my entire cast of characters. This is my little dashboard, and I think it's going to come in handy like quite a lot, honestly. That is everything that I had to share with you guys. I hope you enjoyed. I hope that if anything, my journey up until this point has really inspired you guys to pursue the things that you really want to pursue. I told myself a year ago that I wanted to write a book, and I've technically written 2, but this is the one that I'm most proud of, and this is my magnum opus, to be completely honest. I'm so proud of this, and I think a lot of the shyness that I had surrounding this book has kind of faded away. I've really pushed myself to feel a lot more confident talking about the book, about the fact that I am a writer and also like a content creator. I'm constantly surprising myself with the ways that I am learning how to show up for myself, and that is like a huge reason why I wanted to start this channel in the first place. And I feel like I talk about this all the time at the end of my videos, but truly, you know, it makes my heart so happy whenever I get a comment of someone saying like, the way that I show up for myself and create time for the things that are important to me motivates all of you to do the same, even if it's in some small way. Like, I'm constantly also surprising myself with the amount of determination that I have to see something through from start to finish. Even if I query this and it goes nowhere, I am still going to keep writing. I am still going to be chasing something that means a lot to me, because writing has honestly been one of the most difficult but rewarding things I've ever done in my entire life. And I'm incredibly proud of myself for putting myself out there and just trying something difficult when I never really thought that I could. And I'm so excited to start on draft 3. I'm excited to get this to a really solid spot and give it to folks and see what they think. I think the people that I talk to about it, I think they think that this book is just going to be like trauma and sadness. And there's some of that, but at the end of the day, this book is actually a lot about hope and finding out how to try. And even though you might fail, it's the showing up that counts. And I really want it to be a message of hope. And I think that's why I'm so passionate about it, because I wish I would have had a book like this when I was in my mid-20s. So I'm definitely writing for me, which feels really special and important. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you made it all the way to the end, feel free to leave a maple leaf emoji. I feel like that's very fitting. I'm so glad to have you here, and I would love to hear how your projects are going in the comment section down below. If you like this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up so that other people can find the channel. If you liked it, also consider subscribing. I post new videos every single Saturday, and it is a joy to be able to talk with all of you in the comment section every week. Thank you all again so much for watching, and until next time, I am rooting for you. Bye!